What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel. I am joined by Daniel Starkand. We know the Dodgers are playing right now. We're appreciative of the folks joining us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I guess we're not on Instagram. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We appreciate it. Daniel, we missed you the last couple weeks. Justin Lorber was here doing a prospect deep dive. That was awesome. You settled into some stuff on the Lakers side. It's good to have you back, though. We launch into 2021. The real question, are you ready for game 1 of 162 and then some this Thursday?
Yeah, I'm absolutely ready. I missed this show the last couple weeks. I was a listener though. I tuned in. Justin was great. Obviously, he knows prospects better than me and better than anyone else pretty much as far as the Dodgers organization goes. So it was good to get informed on some of the guys down in the farm there. But yeah, I'm stoked. I'm ready for opening day. We're 3 days away here, and stuff is starting to take shape. So it should be a good show. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in if we can get people on the show who are the types of folks that I would listen to, that I would read, and that kind of thing. So when Justin is up for coming, and he hopefully will join us a couple times throughout the season,
Yep.
It was really good. So if you missed any of that and you're interested in Dodger prospects, we did a huge deep dive the last couple weeks. So it was a good time. Well, tonight we've got a loaded show. Obviously, as Daniel said, opening day just a few days away. There is tons to talk about, and we almost had to rewrite the whole agenda because just a couple hours ago, Dave Roberts went to the microphone and started sharing some insight into the opening day and some stuff going on.
Yep.
So here's the plan for tonight. We're going to talk opening day roster here in a moment. We're going to talk a little fantasy baseball. We're going to make some bold predictions. We're going to do some over-unders as well as just a recap of spring training, some stock up, stock down from the last month and a half or so. So lots to get to. Of course, we'll take questions throughout the show as well from those joining us on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. But let's start with kind of the breaking news of the past couple hours. Before tonight's game, Dave Roberts, as I said, stepped up to the microphone and cleared up some things as it relates to the opening day roster. Named a fifth starter that I think some folks are probably going to be surprised of to hear, and also giving us some insight into the final two guys fighting for a roster spot. So here's the headline. Dustin May, not David Price, is going to be the Dodgers' fifth starter, with Price, Jimmy Nelson, and Tony Gonzalez all starting the year in the bullpen. Here's the full quote we'll put up on the screen from Dave Roberts this afternoon. He said, right now, Dustin is going to start that fifth game. David is going to be a leverage reliever with length in the pen, and Tony Gonzalez is going to fill that same role as well as Jimmy Nelson. Just a lot of variables that I don't really want to get into. I just think we feel good with David, Jimmy, and Tony in the pen, getting left and right out, taking down 2, 3, 4 innings. Potentially at some point, I expect those guys to even finish a game if it makes sense. A lot of good thoughts, balancing a very talented pitching staff. This was sort of the first hurdle, and I think we're in a good spot. So there's a lot to get to. Daniel, you mentioned on Twitter that this wasn't necessarily unexpected if you've been kind of reading the tea leaves of late in David Price press conferences. If you've been watching this show, we've hinted at it a lot, but it's still, I'll admit, kind of jarring to me that this is actually happening, that $34 million a year David Price is going to be a bullpen arm. So I guess I'll start with a simple question. How do you feel about the news that Dustin May is going to be the Dodgers' number 5 starter?
Yeah, just real quick before I get into that, while you were talking there, Will Smith just went the other way for a home run. So the Dodgers are teeing off on Ohtani right now. Chris Taylor homered, Corey Seeger homered, now Will Smith. So it's 7-0. The Warriors are looking good. They're ready for opening day. Put these guys in bubble wrap. But now on to Dustin May. Like you said, this is kind of something we've been talking about all spring. It was the one spot in the starting rotation that was up for grabs. And I feel like all 3 and even 4, if you include Jimmy Nelson, they were all very qualified candidates. And if this was any other organization, like, there's no question that all those guys are major league starters and capable, like, they're top 3 starters in most rotations. So like Dave Roberts said, it was a tough choice for sure because they're all worthy, you know. They all had good springs. They all have great stuff. So, but with that being said, I wasn't really surprised that they went with Dustin May. I still think, first of all, he's like the top prospect of the bunch.
Yeah.
I know he's not a prospect anymore, but I'd say long term, like, he's the guy the Dodgers want, you know, to take that next step. So I don't think he could develop really in the bullpen as much as he can going out and starting every 5th day.
Yeah.
So I think that probably played a role in it as well. But the main thing is just how great Dustin May's looked this spring. And I'll get into that more later in my stock up, stock down. A hint. I'm going with him for stock up. He's looked great this spring. But yeah, we've heard David Price's comments, and he's basically lobbied for a bullpen spot.
Yeah.
He wants the young guys to be able to start. He thinks they're deserving, and that's very selfless of him. For a guy who's accomplished
Cy
everything
Young.
that he's accomplished in his career, he's won a Cy Young. For him to willingly do that is awesome, and I think his stuff's gonna play up really well out of the bullpen. And also another aspect of that is they're going to be able to limit his innings, which you have to do considering he threw 0 last season.
Yeah.
So you can't just put him out there to start every fifth, day 30 starts. But with all that being said, I still think most of, if not all, these guys are going to start games throughout the course of the season. Like, just because Dustin May is starting the year in the fifth rotation spot doesn't mean that's how it's going to be the whole season. But I am excited to see, what Dustin May could do with that.
Yeah, now, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but we might as well get into it a little bit. You said Dustin May, talking about the spring that he has had, that kind of, it's a combination of a lot of things, right? Like, I think David Price has been lobbying for it, but even with that, it wasn't a sure thing that May was going to be the guy that would get that fifth spot.
Yeah.
I think Gonzalez has a case to be made, and Nelson as well. May's interesting. And again, I don't mean to steal from the future segment that we're going to get to, but I do think it's worth talking about now. Dustin May, one of the biggest knocks against him, and Gratterall, the same thing, was they couldn't strike anybody out last year. You would see the stuff, 101 mile an hour, moving all over the place, but the guys would just hit it. I mean, it was a sinker, which makes for weak contact, etc. This spring, he has 17 strikeouts and 13 2/3 innings. So on one hand, you're looking at that and saying, hey, he's figured it out. That was the weak spot. Here's my concern, though. 6 walks in 13 2/3 innings. He's actually allowed 17 base runners in 13 2/3 innings this year. So his walks and hits per inning pitched is, 1 and 1.3, 1.4. So not a great number. So I guess that's where it's concerned. I hear you on the prospect piece where it's like, hey, May has the highest upside. This is the guy that if any of these guys is going to become a number 1, number 2, number 3 type starter, it's probably May, followed by Gonzalez. But I guess, I've been a Gonzalez fan. Attack the Planet, who's joining us on YouTube, says he likes Tony Gonzalez in the number 5 spot. That's kind of where I land. So I guess I'm not surprised that May gets there, but I do still wonder if he gets kind of the benefit of the doubt that maybe a guy like Gonzalez doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair, and it's because of A, he's younger, and B, you just see the stuff he has, and you think, like, yes, this guy could be a top of the rotation starter, and we're going to do everything we can, to get him there. So I definitely think that plays into it. But real quick, just on the comment you made as far as, his walks and his whip and that type of stuff, something we've seen with May this spring is he's clearly tinkering with his pitches and his repertoire. So I think that could definitely play into, the wildness. He's throwing a lot more four-seam fastballs. I think Justin Lorbor, as we mentioned, our guy, Future Dodgers, he broke this down on Twitter pretty well a week or two ago. We're seeing May throw a lot more four-seam fastballs this spring than he did last year. He's hunting that high fastball, which helps you get more strikeouts. And he's been throwing his breaking ball more, which we sat here basically all offseason and talked about. For May, to really take that next step and be an elite starter, he has to add that third, pitch, that breaking ball. And so it's good to see him throwing it more. But like you said, he has walked, a bunch of guys, so he still has some work to do, as far as getting his pitches where they want to be. And it is spring training, so it's not like you don't expect a guy to come in right away and have his command pinpoint and just be all his pitches beyond. That takes time. But the pure stuff is there with May, and I think ultimately that's what won him this job, and now it'll be up to him to keep it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we're going to get to some more May, Gonzalez, Price, Nelson talk in a little bit. The other bit of news that Robert shared, number 2, I should say, is that Zach Mckinstry will officially make the roster alongside Matt Beatty. It's kind of those last 2 bench spots offensively. I think Mckinstry, both of us had from the get-go, 8 weeks ago, hey, McKinstry's going to make the roster. Beatty, a little bit of a surprise. For me, at least, I think he's had a good spring. He's probably earned his way there. They think he's their second best option out in right field, it sure seems like. So no real surprises there with McKinstry and Beatty. The one last bit of drama that Roberts did hint at is that there is one bullpen spot still up for grabs. Scott Alexander, left-hander, and Dennis Santana, the right-hander, battling for that final roster spot. I'm curious. I picked the other day, I put Santana in that spot personally, with Price as in the pen as a left-hander to go with Victor Gonzalez. That's why I feel a little bit better about Santana, although Santana had a great start to the spring, has kind of struggled his last couple outings. Who do you have, Santana and Scott Alexander?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's pretty much a toss-up. If you look at the spring numbers, which you don't put too much weight into, but when they're competing for a job, that's kind of the guys who you actually care about their numbers.
Yeah.
And they're pretty similar, I'd say. Like, neither of them have been bad, neither of them have been great. And at the end of the day, we're talking about like the last spot in the bullpen here, so it's not super important.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, I'm kind of with you. I think I'd go with Santana just because with Price now in the bullpen, that gives you that second lefty. So you don't really have much of a need for Alexander. And I just think Santana's stuff plays up pretty well to the bullpen. I think he misses more bats than Alexander does. We know Alexander's a ground ball specialist, which could be good at times, but has also gotten him into trouble at times. So I think I'd rather go Santana there and see what he's got. I feel like he's never really gotten a true opportunity to say, hey, this roster spot's yours. You're going to get to pitch, some medium leverage type deals. Like, I don't think he's jumping into a high leverage deal, but he'll pitch some meaningful innings and let's see what he's got. And if it doesn't work out, you can always make a change a few weeks down the road or whatever.
Yeah, and I should be fair to Santana. I said he struggled of late. He had one bad outing on March 18th. He allowed 4 earned runs. That's the only appearance that he's made all spring in which he's allowed runs. So to be fair to him, he had one bad outing. The last 3 have been scoreless, 1 inning type affairs. So yeah, I'm with you. I part of me wonders too. I mean, you kind of know what you have in Scott Alexander. And honestly, like Clevenger and Vesia are 2 other lefties that probably offer you more upside. Both of them have struggled this spring, so I understand why maybe Alexander is slightly ahead of them now. But yeah, I mean, Santana's a guy that he could have trade value. Like if he can come into the season and give you some good innings and keep a low ERA, and you can shop him around to other teams and say, hey, this is a guy that can actually, you're seeing his stuff perform at the major league level, and he can get you outs, but also he can lengthen and be a starting pitcher. I think that's a benefit. Or you just find out, hey, how does his stuff play out? Can he touch upper 90s when he's just throwing 1 or 2 innings and go from there? So it definitely an interesting one there, but you and I both agree Santana. Kevin Rios is chiming in on YouTube. Santana should easily get the final spot. Alexander is absolute trash is his take. I'm not sure I'd go that far. Trust me, we've all seen some really bad Dodger bullpens. 5-6 years ago, the years where it's like you would kill for a guy like Scott Alexander to bring some stability. I think Alexander is kind of a perfect litmus test of where your bullpen is at. If Alexander is not good enough to make it, and he's your 9th, 10th, I guess we're at like 14th best option, it just shows you, he's a competent major. He'd probably make just about every bullpen in baseball, I think, as a lefty, a guy that gets ground balls, a guy that has been consistently pretty good, better than most teams. Most fans probably give him credit for, and yet he's kind of on the outside looking in. So I wouldn't be surprised. Would you be surprised if it's Alexander over Santana, or would you just say, I think it's kind of 50-50, but I lean Santana?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised at all just because, Alexander has been a major league pitcher for a number of years now. He's got one option year left, but he's not really a guy that you think of as a minor league pitcher at this point. Whereas, like, if they send Santana down, like, no one's really going to, bat an eye at that. They'll be like, yeah, he needs a little more seasoning, and he'll be up at some point. So I feel like it could go either way. Are you going to go with the known commodity, like you said? Like, what you're going to get Alexander. It's not great, but it's not bad either. Yeah. He could get you some outs if you need it. Or are you going to go with the guy in Santana who has the higher upside? So I'm actually curious to see what they're going to go with. But I wouldn't be surprised, either way.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out, right? As soon as Brusdar Graterol is back, whoever makes this final roster spot is going to be gone. And then when Joe Kelly comes back, I think is when things get really interesting. Because presumably a guy like McKinstry, Jimmy Nelson, those were kind of the last names to make the roster. There's no way Jimmy Nelson's on the cusp. So I'll be fascinated to see what happens when a guy like Joe Kelly comes back. It sounds like that is a little bit ways away. They don't have to make that decision, whereas Graterol sounds like he might be a tad bit closer. But that'll be interesting. So, again, the Dodger 26-man opening day roster, all but set. McKinstry and Beatty get the final 2 spots. Edwin Rios, Austin Barnes, Chris Taylor kind of joining them in the bunch group offensively. And then on the bullpen side, Jimmy Nelson grabs a spot, and the last spot currently up for grabs is between Dennis Santana and Scott Alexander. So, again, opening day just a couple days away. We'll have an answer to that question, but it is interesting that Dave Roberts is still thinking about that one. So, That was kind of the headlines coming out of Roberts' press conference, again, just before this game that's going on. The Dodgers currently slapping the Angels around, hitting home runs all over the place. Chris Taylor, Corey Seeger, Will Smith, all with home runs, it sounds like. So good stuff from the Dodgers looking in midseason form, which is what you like to see. Well, let's shift gears to a segment that we introduced this spring training called Stock Up and Stock Down. And every week so far, we've been doing this kind of as a reflection on the 7 days prior. This time, we're going to look back on the entirety of spring training and pick a couple guys whose stock is up and maybe one guy whose stock has kind of taken a tumble a little bit. So, Daniel, I'll throw it to you first. I know we've talked about at least one of the guys on your list, but who do you want to start with and stock up and stock down?
Yeah, I'm just going to get him out of the way right now. My first stock up was Dustin May. Basically for all the reasons we talked about. And I came up with these before Roberts, listed him as the fifth starter. But to me, it just kind of seemed like it has been trending that way for a while. May, he's got a 2.63 ERA this spring, which is really good. Like you mentioned with the walks, you'd like to limit those a little bit. But you'll take the low ERA. You'll take the 17 strikeouts in 13 2/3 innings. That was arguably the biggest, criticism we had for May was last season was he wasn't striking out as many guys as he should, considering the stuff he has. But I think that, the tweaks he made, the change in his repertoire, he's throwing more high four-seam fastballs as opposed to the two-seam sinkers, which are filthy, but they're more conducive to contact, I'd say. The high four-seamers and the low breaking balls, that's kind of how you get the strikeout. So from what I saw from Dustin May, this spring, I'm very encouraged at where he's moving to, like where he's going to get eventually. He's not there yet. He's still got a ways to go, but I'm very impressed with what I saw from him this spring.
Yeah, and I mean, just to put into context, his strikeout per 9 last season was like 5 or 6 or something like that. This spring, very small samples.
I think you mentioned on the show once it was like one of the lowest in all of baseball, if not the lowest. Him and Gratterall were the two lowest,
yeah, absolutely. And so this spring, for that to jump to about 13, is pretty insane. The work that he's been able to put in. So absolutely a good one there. I'll go a similar vein. Jimmy Nelson is a guy that I've got stock up. 7 innings pitched, 9 strikeouts, no earned runs. He's just been fantastic. The Dodgers signed him to a minor league deal. He kept getting hurt. They cut him. They re-signed him as a non-roster invitee. He absolutely has been fantastic. This is a guy who was a Cy Young candidate just 3, 4, 5 years ago. He's flashing that stuff again. There's some folks on Twitter. I'm blanking on the actual handles. Maybe you can help me out. But they've been talking about the spin rate for Jimmy Nelson and just the way that the spin rate on his stuff has seemingly been elevated, and they're waiting to hear some of that stuff. So the underlying metrics are sort of confirming what we're seeing with our eyes, that Jimmy Nelson is really, really good. The Dodgers add him to the 40-man. He's costing them basically nothing, even though he probably should be a starter on most rosters. Here he isn't, but 7 innings, 9 strikeouts. It's just been good to see him healthy, and his stuff has been nasty so far.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the main thing with Jimmy Nelson is the health. He hasn't been healthy in years. The last time he was like 100% healthy was 2017, which, like you mentioned, that was when he was a Cy Young candidate and one of the best starting pitchers in all of baseball. So it's good to see him out there healthy. The stuff looks great. He looks like he could fill basically any role this team needs him to. He could start if they need it. He could be a long reliever and give them some length. And his stuff even plays up where he could be a high leverage reliever. So, yeah, Jimmy Nelson's having a great spring. I'm happy he made the roster, and I think he's going to, give this team, a lot of big outs this season. And I have one of my predictions that we'll get to later involves Jimmy Nelson. So I'll talk more about him there. But, yeah, I'm very high on Jimmy Nelson. Great spring.
So Jerry Archer Jr. asks, is Jimmy Nelson a trade piece in your mind, or is he a guy that the Dodgers should keep around?
I don't think he's a trade piece. I mean, maybe if, by the deadline you got so many other options that you don't need him. But the way the roster is looking now, like he's a guy who's going to get big outs for them, whether it be high leverage or even he could come in and pitch, 3 innings if the team needs it, if a starter doesn't go as long as you'd hoped or something like that. So I think with his contract, he's not making any money. That's just too good. That's just too good of value to trade for me.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Jerry. We appreciate you as always, folks joining us on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope. Please leave us comments and ask us questions as we go. It's something I've considered because on one hand, you don't want to play with fire, right? Injuries can always happen, and so it might look good to say, hey, Jimmy Nelson's our 8th best starter right now. Surely we can trade him. There's surely value for a guy that's A, not making any money, and B, has the upside that he has. We're talking about probably a prospect in return that's not nothing, right? You think about what Ross Stripling brought back. I mean, you would imagine Jimmy Nelson maybe in the same ballpark as far as value, potentially more, who knows? But that's the one hand. On the other, it's like, well, yes, you can never have too many starting pitchers, and Nelson is an asset in the bullpen. So it kind of comes down to, like, I think Dennis Santana is a great point. How close can Dennis Santana give you to what Jimmy Nelson's going to give you out of the bullpen? If you think Dennis Santana can give you 85 to 90% of what Nelson can give you in the limited role that he's going to be handed, because yes, he's looked good, but you still got Janssen, Knebel, Trinan, Gonzalez. I mean, the number, it's not like he's just going to, David Price, like he's still the 6th or 7th best reliever out in that bullpen. So I could go either way. I mean, if you got blown away by an offer of a legit prospect or something, sure, move on. But, I think he likes it in the Dodgers system. They've shown some faith in him. And so, I'd rather win a championship than go get another prospect. And if Jimmy Nelson helps me get there slightly, which I think he will, then you probably just keep him around. So great question, Jerry. We appreciate that. I'll turn it over to you, Daniel. Number 2 on your stock up or stock down.
My number 2 stock up again is Gavin Lux. He was arguably the guy we were keeping an eye on the most this spring, just to see. He had the most to gain and the most to lose from this spring. And he's looked great, coming into tonight. He's batting .356, an .894 OPS. He went the other way for a bomb last night. And he's just looked comfortable at the plate, which is something that wasn't the case at all last season. So it just looks like night and day compared to last year. And he's basically went out and won that starting second base job. Dave Roberts said the other day he basically envisions Lux playing, every day or almost every day. Which is great to hear, because we know, we saw what he accomplished in the minor leagues a couple seasons ago, and we've all just been kind of waiting to see what he could do at the big leagues, and it hasn't worked out so far, but he's still really young, still got a great future ahead of him, and I think, he's going to have a big year.
First of all, Daniel, I want to credit you. I love that you're bringing numbers tonight. You're getting into midseason form here, talking to me about batting average and OPS. I love that. But yeah, Lux has been fantastic. He would have been on my list as well. Daniel and I are in a fantasy baseball league. We're going to talk a little fantasy baseball later. Yeah. I'm currently trying as hard as I can to trade for Gavin Lux. I've got a Jose Altuve for Gavin Lux trade sort of floating around there with some other pieces. So I'm a big believer in Lux. I am as high on Lux. This guy was a top 5 prospect. Like, a year ago, if he did what he was doing right now, he would be the absolute talk of spring training. If he had come in to spring training as a top 5 prospect and done what he is currently doing, hitting .356 with almost a 900 OPS, hitting opposite field bombs in Dodger Stadium, right? Like, playing fantastic defense, people would be losing their freaking minds. He would be the rookie of the year favorite, yada, 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 the whole deal. And yet, because he had this weird COVID season in between, it's kind of sliding under the radar, but I very much love the Gavin Lux up. Absolutely agree with you there. Let's see. For me, I'll throw 2 relievers out as up guys. Victor Gonzalez and Kenley Janssen are both going to get up arrows from me. Victor Gonzalez, 9 appearances, no earned runs, 13 strikeouts. He was a revelation last year. There was this question in my mind, was it a one-year wonder? Are people going to adjust and figure it out? Well, apparently this spring they haven't. 9 appearances, no earned runs, 3 strikeouts. And second, I got to give a shout out to my guy. I don't know why and how he became my guy, but Kenley Janssen, 6 2/3, 1 earned run, 12 strikeouts. 12 strikeouts. He's striking out almost 2 batters per inning. Add that to the weak contact he was having last year. He's been fantastic, pounding the strike zone, missing bats. So a arrow up for Victor Gonzalez and Kenley Janssen for me.
Yeah, I agree. Both of those guys that look really good. Victor Gonzalez, like you said, we weren't really sure what to expect from him coming into this year. We were like, is he a one-year wonder type of deal? Is he, the next big thing? And so far he's been great in the spring. He's done exactly what he did last season. So yeah, I think he's the unquestioned, lefty high leverage guy out of the Dodger bullpen. He's going to pitch big innings for them. And then Kenley, like you said, 12 strikeouts in 6 1/3 innings or whatever it is. I mean, it's hard to argue with that type of production. So if that's the Kenley the Dodgers are getting in the regular season, then they could have the best bullpen in all of baseball. Obviously, we'll wait and see if that ends up being the case. But so far, so good. Kenley looks great.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, stock down. We each picked one guy. I've got a couple names on my list, actually. But who do you have as a guy that's spring training maybe didn't stock down, and you got to keep in mind where this
Yeah.
person's stock was.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean the world is falling, but maybe just the arrow is pointing more down than it is up. So who do you got there?
Yeah, yeah. This is definitely not a sky is falling deal for me. But for me, for stock down, I had the quote unquote aces of the Dodgers. They have three of them: Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, Trevor Bauer. And I'm just gonna be honest, none of them have looked
Oof.
good this spring. Buehler got rocked his last time out. Kershaw got rocked his last time out. Trevor Bauer, he was kind of fooling around against Jose Ramirez, but he had a rough first.
Allegedly.
Well, he was telling him fastball was coming. He was throwing him all fastballs. So I mean, he had a rough first inning there. Kind of got back on track after that. But overall, his spring hasn't been phenomenal by any means. But yeah, I'm not super worried about these guys. Like they're big time guys that have proven in the past that they get it done when it matters the most. So I'm not worried by any means. But ideally, you want to see your best pitchers look better than the Dodgers guys have. So yeah, I'm just hoping it turns around in the regular season.
You don't like Kershaw's 10-point something ERA this spring?
I was gonna bring out more stats for you, but I looked up the stats for all three of these guys, and it wasn't pretty, so I didn't even bother writing it down.
I think if you look at the spring training stats on MLB.com, they give you the top 25. You have to go to the second page of Dodger pitchers to find Clayton Kershaw. We'll put it that way, so it hasn't been pretty. I've got two guys I'll throw out on the stock down. Edwin Rios, kind of a disappointing spring. 5 for 27 with no home runs. This is a guy that, yes, they brought Justin Turner back, which was probably a bit demoralizing for him, thinking maybe he was going to get some more time at third base, but he just hasn't impressed. It's a guy that everyone's expecting to at some point make it a leap and kind of get consistent at bats and prove that he deserves it. And the way he's hitting, I mean, Chris Taylor is clearly ahead of him in the at-bat category, and you could probably make an argument that Zach Mckinstry is right on his heels as well. So I'm hoping that Rios can kind of turn it on, but 5 for 27 with no home runs, not impressive there. And I'll throw one other name out. This is maybe a little bit unfair, but Josiah Gray, top pitching prospect in the Dodger organization. Yes, he's young. Yes, we know he's a year, maybe two away from the major leagues, but 5 1/3 innings, 7 earned runs, 6 walks this spring. Not ideal. So again, it's that his stock isn't going anywhere. This has no impact on his long-term future, but those are the guys that I like to see the most, I think, in spring training, and yet a little bit disappointing, I think, for me. So that rounds it up. Any thoughts from you on Rios or Gray?
Just real quick on Gray, yeah, I agree. He hasn't looked great, but it's important to remember with a lot of these minor league guys, they didn't have a season last year. Like they just were at the alternate site playing inter squads, like low intensity. It's not the same. So I feel like it's going to take a lot of those guys, some time to kind of get back into the swing of things. You're going back, a year and a half to the last, meaningful baseball game that Josiah Gray played. So I'm not putting too much weight into that, but yeah, I think it's clear he needs some more seasoning. I don't think he's major league ready yet. So I think, yeah, he's going to go down to the minor leagues. He'll probably have a great season and we'll be able to laugh about this. But yeah, he hasn't been, phenomenal this spring by any means.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there we go. Stock up, stock down. Of course, there's a lot of other guys we could mention, but those are some of the headliners now. So let's shift gears into another segment. And this is bold prediction time. And so I asked Daniel to make 3 predictions about the upcoming season. I made 3 myself, and the rule was one of these had to be somewhat crazy. One of these had to be a little outlandish and get people a little like, what the heck is this person talking about? So you can place that one whenever you want. I'll start. We'll flip the order up here a little bit. I'll start, and I'm going to double down on a prediction that I made maybe back in January, maybe December, and that was that Kenley Janssen is going to post an ERA under 3.00 this year. I believe I got a little bit of crazy looks when I first said that. Positive spring so far has definitely helped my cause. But he's had a great spring. I think COVID explains some of the things that maybe he struggled with last year, as I've talked about, probably to the point of people being sick of hearing it. His hard hit contact numbers are very, very good, among the best in all of baseball last year. And so I'll double down. I think Jansen is motivated. I think he's rejuvenated. I think he's healthy. And I think it's going to be a great season. So my first prediction is Kenley Jansen, 3.00 ERA under on that one.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that Jeff's driving the Kenley Janssen train this year, guys. So whenever the first time he blows up and blows a save and we have a live show, when you guys come on here angry, just please direct all your anger towards Jeff, not towards me. I'm with most of you guys. I feel like I'm not on the Kenley Janssen train quite yet. But yeah, he's looked good this spring. And someone's got to be in his corner, so I'm glad
Yeah,
it's you.
there we go. Hey, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here. What about you? First prediction.
My first prediction, I'm sure literally everyone here could guess what it's going to be. I am predicting that Corey
Schmory
Seager
Meager winning
is going to win
the
the 2021 National League MVP. I made the same prediction last year. He did not win the regular season version, but he had a great regular season, was all world in the postseason, won every MVP there is in the postseason. And he's come back this spring and is looking even better, if that's even possible. Like, he just hit his 8th home run today.
Yeah.
I think him and Jock Peterson are tied for, the spring training lead there. So yeah, Corey Seager, he's going to win the MVP this year, and contract year, he's got extra motivation. So yeah.
Especially, I mean, not to shift gears too completely, but Francisco Lindor reportedly being offered a 10-year, $325 million contract. So Seager's going to have lots to play for this year. Because if Lindor gets 325 or maybe even slightly more, that's bad news for the Dodgers checkbooks. I'll put it that way. So it's not to say they won't get him, but it's not what I'd be rooting for if I was a Dodger fan. Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to love Corey Seager. He's been absolutely on a tear when he's dialed in. That's the thing with a guy like Seager. The issue has never been talent. The issue has been health. And so anytime he's healthy, he's been fantastic. So the only question isn't like, will he be great if he plays 162 games? The question is, how many games can he play? Can he get to 145 or more games? And if he does, he'll be right smack in the middle of it. I don't know which of the next two of these is a crazier prediction. So I'll just go in order. I think Gavin Lux is an all-star in 2021. I don't know if that's a crazy prediction, but I've got Gavin Lux as an all-star. And here's why. Couple things. A, I'm pro Gavin Lux. I think he's going to be fantastic. And it's also combined with, I just think second base is a pretty weak position in the National League. You've got Ozzie Albies as kind of the absolute favorite. But then beyond there, you've got Hiura from the Brewers, McNeil from the Mets, Segura from Philly, Edman in St. Louis. You've got Happ in Chicago, Cronenworth in San Diego. I think Lux could be number 2 on that list. Like, I think it's possible that he hits 300. That was almost my prediction here. But I think Gavin Lux could easily hit 305 this year. I think he could end up with 15 to 20 home runs and play solid defense. And if you do that in Los Angeles, in a big market as a young guy, and oh, by the way, your manager is the manager for the National League team and gets to pick some replacements, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. And so I'm going to go bold prediction. Gavin Lux is an all-star in 2021.
I like that one. I definitely like that one. And one other thing to remember is he's going to be hitting, 7th, 8th in that lineup. So he's going to have guys on base in front of him. He's going to have, pitchers pitching to him because they don't want to pitch to other guys. So, I definitely think there's not a whole lot of pressure on Gavin Lux this season, which is good just because there's so many other guys that could produce in that lineup. So, I think he's going to have a big year. I don't know about all-star, but like you mentioned, second base in the NL is pretty weak. So it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, if you look at, and if you go and look at who are the best 10 second basemen in all of baseball, it's like 60 or 70% of that list are all in the American League. So it is both. There's two factors working in my favor there, but that's what I've got. So number 2 for you. My number two. My number 2 is similar to your Kenley prediction. I'm pretty sure I made this prediction in January or whatever when we did predictions, but my prediction is that Will Smith is going to be the best hitting catcher in baseball in 2021. And this, in my opinion, this is not a bold prediction at all, because if you go back and look at the numbers from last year, he basically was the best hitting catcher. The only thing he was lacking is volume, kind of, which I'm kind of afraid of is going to be the case again this season. We've heard Dave Roberts say he's only going to be catching 90 games. I hope that's not the case. I hope give him at least like 110, 120. I'm not saying he's got to catch 140, 150, but it should be more than 90. 90 is basically a 50-50 split between him and Barnes, which that's not good enough for me. But I think, as long as Will Smith is playing, the guy's going to hit. We've seen it. We just saw 20 minutes ago, he went the other way for a home run. So he's going to mash this year, and I think he's going to win a Silver Slugger and potentially be the best hitting catcher in baseball. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Will Smith fan. Dave Roberts gets some flack for his bullpen management. If Will Smith plays 90 games this season, and it's not because of injury and it's not because he's struggling, I might lose my mind. I mean, the Dodgers genuinely have one of the 2 or 3 best catch. I mean, I would argue he has to be in the top 3. I think it's
Yeah.
Real Muto and him, and then maybe Grandal, Salvador Perez. Like, I mean, we just did a fantasy drive. You're looking at this list. It is garbage. It is a wasteland at catcher. And you could argue he's better than Real Muto, and I don't even think you're crazy for arguing that. And yet you have Dave Roberts saying he's going to play 90 games. And oh, well, maybe he's going to play third. He's not going to play third. You have Edwin Rios that could play, that he needs at bats at third. You know, he's not going to play these other positions. He's going to be a catcher. There's no designated hitter. If Will Smith plays 90 games, I'm going to lose my mind. So love the prediction. Totally agree with you. The only issue that I would have is if he plays 90 games, he's not going to be the best hitting catcher in the National League.
Yeah.
That's an issue.
Yeah.
Number 3 for me, that's probably now my boldest prediction after everything that has transpired in the last few hours. But I think that the Dodgers' number 4 starting pitcher entering the postseason will be Tony Gonsolin. I'm a believer in Gonsolin. I think by the end of the season, I think he's going to be the 4th best pitcher the Dodgers have. You could obviously include Urias maybe going to the bullpen for the postseason. So this is less of a knock on, is Gonsolin better than Urias? Although, maybe. But I just think Gonsolin's got 14 starts, 6 relief appearances in his major league career, 2.60 ERA, a FIP of 3.02, strikeout to walk of almost 4-1. Yes, I know May's stuff is nasty. Yes, I know May is younger. Gonsolin's 26. He's been fantastic. I think he's the number 1 most slept on guy in the Dodger organization. So entering the postseason, I've got Tony Gonsolin as the Dodgers' number 4 starter.
Yeah, and to your point about being slept on, he's another guy who's had a really great spring and no one's really talked about it. His outing last night wasn't great against the Angels, but before that, he's been lights out this spring.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going that far. I still think they want Julio in the rotation. But we saw what Julio could do out of the bullpen. So if Gonsolin comes out and has a great year, I don't think, you could take that out of the equation. So yeah, I don't mind that prediction at all.
So which one's my craziest prediction? I mean, you probably think all three. You think all three are crazy. Janssen under 3, Lux to the All-Star game, and Gonsolin as the 4th starter in the postseason. You've got Gonsolin. That's the boldest of the 3.
Yeah, I think they're all pretty bold, but yeah, I'd say Gonsolin is the boldest, just because of the other guys, you know, not necessarily him.
And I'm thinking, I mean, that's sort of operating under the assumption that Urias is a relief pitcher that's not like, oh, Gonsolin is better than Urias at the end of the year, and therefore he has beaten him out. It's more so that I think Urias just slides into the end of the bullpen slot there. So, all right, number 3 for you, your boldest prediction yet is
this is my bold prediction, and I think it's the boldest prediction out of all the bold predictions we've had so far. But for me, my 3rd bold prediction is that I have Jimmy Nelson is going to be closing out ball games for the Dodgers in October. Okay, that's not for bold.
When was that? He's going to be closing games when?
In October.
In October. Like, so postseason we're talking. He's the postseason closer is Jimmy Nelson.
Jimmy Nelson is going to be the Dodgers' postseason closer. I think he's going to come out, have a great year out of the bullpen. I think we're going to see his stuff play out really well. He's got closer stuff for sure. Like if you look at, his fastball, breaking ball combo, he's basically on pitching ninja every outing just because he's so filthy. If he could stay healthy, I think he's going to have a good year. And I think we could see him, closing out some ball games.
There you go. Well,
And I will say, I made this prediction before Dave Roberts made his comments earlier. You threw the comment up there. He said he expects those guys who are pitching out of the bullpen to see some high leverage innings and maybe even finish some games. So I kind of laughed at that because I had my prediction ready to go already.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, first of all, we just missed. Bellinger just hit a home run to center field. The Dodgers are now winning 8-1. So the Dodgers continue to absolutely rake. Eddie Garcia agrees with you. He likes that prediction. Laura Lara says, wow, Daniel just fired Kenley Janssen. Derek, Eddie, we got lots of thumbs up for you there. My only concern there is I think the number of guys that would have to fail in that spot before Nelson. I think David Price would be ahead of him in line. And I wonder if Treinen would be ahead of him in line. And I also wonder if Knebel would be ahead of him in line. That would be my only concern, is the number of guys that might have to take before he even gets a shot there. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. He has the stuff. My only, which I appreciate, this is a bold take. You're not like, betting your life on it. So I appreciate it. I'm not arguing with that. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't hate it. I mean, again, I'm with you. I think the stuff is there, and absolutely. Throw your crazy predictions in the chat. Brian Sevilla says Trevor Bauer gets his wish and pitches on 3 days rest in the regular season. That is a bold prediction, mostly because we are talking about how the Dodgers have 8 or 9 starting pitchers they can't get enough innings for. I don't think they're going to stretch out guys like that. Okay, Andrew McDaniels, Mookie Betts will win the Triple Crown. So there you go. We're going to get to some Mookie Bet home runs numbers there. I think home runs is where
I
he
don't know if he's
struggles.
hitting enough
Or
home
RBIs.
runs to do that, or driving runs from the leadoff spot. But any Mookie prediction is fine with me. You know, we all know he's gonna have a big year.
Yeah. Hey, absolutely. Yeah. I think RBIs are going to be your problem, especially with no DH. So unless he starts Clayton Kershaw and Trevor Bauer getting some base hits in front of him, they might have trouble. Eddie Garcia's got a crazy one. Max Muncy potentially traded if he starts out the year poorly. I don't know. We'll see. He was a guy that actually had, I didn't realize this as we were breaking down previous seasons. He obviously struggled last year, played a little bit better in the postseason. He had one of the worst batting average on balls in play of any player in baseball. It was like 200. They say average is closer to 300. He hit 200 on balls hit in play, so he's due for some good luck. I can't. Yeah, I mean, if he's slumping, I don't think his value is going to be high enough.
I don't think that's the time to trade him.
And they don't exactly have an obvious first base replacement behind him. I mean, maybe Rios, but again, Rios has been struggling. You can move Bellinger there, but they like his defense in center field. John goes the opposite direction, that Muncie is going to lead the league in on-base percentage, slugging, and OPS. So there you go.
Okay.
On-base percentage, I mean, you know, and slugging, I guess, you know, those are two categories he does fine in. Let's see. CTG says Dodgers tie the major league win record. We'll get to that in a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, one guy, some rando jokes, Mookie's going to win the Triple Crown, but as a jockey. He definitely is about the right size, I think, to be a horse jockey. So there you go.
He's good at every other sport, so I'm sure he could get on a horse and guide that thing to victory too if he wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So some good stuff there. John agrees. Dodgers passed the wins record. So we'll get our thoughts on that one towards the end. We've got the win total in a little bit. So those are our predictions. Let us know if you think we're crazy, if you think those are too bold. But that was kind of the point. Make something that's sort of floating around in the back that you maybe are afraid to say out loud because you think people are crazy. So you build a segment so that you can talk about it. Real quick, Daniel, I got to get your thoughts on this. So Bellinger, when Bellinger hits a home run, the standard tweet has been belly bomb, which is great. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with belly bomb. My issue is I like Seegy bomb for Seeger, and so I'm kind of like using the word bomb in both of those. I think if you just add a D right in the middle of his last name, it actually says Beldinger. Dinger is right there. So I'm a Beldinger guy, but on Twitter there were people not happy. They like belly bomb. So your thoughts, belly bomb or Beldinger?
I'm not going to lie. I've always been a belly bomb guy. I've tweeted on our Dodger Blue account the last 3 seasons, and every home run he's hit, I've said belly bomb. But I'm not going to lie. I like Beldinger. I haven't really thought of that one before. I think it has a nice little ring to it. So yeah, I like Beldinger. I like that a lot.
Dinger is just a great word. I love that word as a reference to home run. And again, I mean, literally you're just putting one letter in the middle of his last name. And you could go Bell, like lowercase, and Dinger in all caps, I think is great. So Brian says belly blast. I think we just need to mix up. Like bomb can't be in everyone. I think Seegy bomb is nice. And bomb doesn't necessarily fit with like Mookie or Turner or some of those guys.
No.
Do you have, I'll ask this. This was unplanned. So Daniel has had no preparation, and this is something I probably think far more of. But do you have other guys? Like, what's your go-to like home run tweet if certain guys have it? So like when Will Smith hits a home run, for example, like my tweet, I think is just Bill in all caps. I don't know why, but my go-to is just Bill, like just all caps Bill. Muncie, I like Maxwell. Like I like when you elongate that name a little bit. It's like just Maxwell in all caps. I like that.
So, for Muncie, I like Maximum.
Okay, Maximum. Just Maximum
if he hits
by
the ball
itself.
Really far out. Yeah, just Maximum.
Okay.
I had Jock Pop was a big one for me. Obviously, Jock's gone,
Shout out
but that was a big one. Yeah. Who else? I don't know.
Turner
I can't
doesn't
really
have one. I mean, he's not a huge home run guy, but he kind of doesn't have one. And Mookie, Mookie's just Mookie in all caps is probably the easy one there, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Yeah. I can't really think other than like belly bomb and Beldinger now that we're gonna go with.
Yeah. I gotta think.
Yeah, I don't know. We could probably come up with something for Lux.
I know. Luxurious, deluxe. There's options there.
Yeah.
I know. I got to think about that. Smash is another word that we could incorporate. You could incorporate in as sort of a synonym for home run. So you've got Dinger.
That was Scott Van Smash.
Scott Van Smash
back in the day.
Yeah, dude, that's a guy. I keep trying to get him on the show. He won't respond to my tweets, but Scott Van Smash. that was a personal favorite of mine. I'm not going to claim that I came up with it, but it originated in my head. I wasn't copying anybody. But Scott Van Smash, that's absolutely one of my favorite ones. D-Lux is good. Yeah, people like that one. D-Lux. Corey Smash. Yeah, I mean, Seegy Bomb. That's nice. All caps, Seegy Bomb. So I don't want to mess. That's kind of the one that I feel like you start with Seegy Bomb and you just go from there. So anyways, you guys can let us know if we're missing anybody there. But yeah, anyways, I don't know why we're talking about that, but that was just something I came up. Bell Dinger. I want to get Bell Dinger going. So there we go. Well, let's talk a little bit fantasy baseball. I think fantasy baseball is something a lot of baseball fans do. I don't know if you agree. It's my favorite fantasy sport to play. Football's a close second, but fantasy baseball is amazing.
Yeah.
Daniel joined a league that I've been in with a bunch of friends a few years ago. Trust the Process was his team name. He's been tanking, basically. He kind of unofficially tanked last year, built up some draft prospects. So we've got some good ones here. But so the point of this segment here is to look at average draft position on certain guys on the Dodgers, and you tell me, are you buying or selling at this price? So again, like for example, Trevor Bauer is currently the 15th. He's average coming off the board at number 15. So when I say buy or sell, if you say sell, it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, Trevor Bauer sucks. It means, hey, he might be 20 to 25 instead of 15 for me. So I'll throw out this one. So Mookie Betts is number 3. I think everybody's a fan. If you can get Mookie Betts on your fantasy team, absolutely go ahead and do it. Bauer is number 2 for the Dodgers at 15th overall. Bellinger is number 3 at 19th overall. I'll preface this with a fun story that the folks watching don't know. I have Cody Bellinger on my team. He was a keeper. Daniel drafted Trevor Bauer with his first overall pick. It's a keeper league, so the rankings are a little messed up. I offered Daniel Cody Bellinger for Trevor Bauer, straight up. I need a little pitching. He needs a little hitting. Daniel says no. He rejected me after putting it out on Twitter, making me wait 36 hours. Then he rejects me. So the question I have for you is, Bauer at 15, Bellinger at 19. It feels like you're buying on Bauer and selling on Bellinger. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate. I'm buying on Bauer just because I think the volume is going to be there, and that's really important in fantasy. Like he's going to pitch a lot of innings. He's probably going to, if he stays healthy, of course, he's going to lead the Dodgers in innings pitched. He's going to strike out a lot of guys. He's obviously on a great team, so he's going to win a lot of games. So I think for fantasy purposes, I'm definitely buying Bauer at that price. Like you said, I picked him in the first round. I needed some pitching there. And he was the best available, and it was kind of a no-brainer for me, compared to the other options that were out there. So, yeah, I'm buying Bauer, and I am selling Belly just because we just don't know what we're going to get out of him. Yeah. Like, I love Belly, and we know how high his ceiling is. Like, we saw him win an MVP and have just an outrageous season, and I could be looking like a fool 6 months down the road by not making that deal if he goes out and does that again. But for me, he just makes too many swing tweaks. There's so much going on that I can't bet on him as much as I'd like to, at that price. I think, when you're looking at in the first, second round of your drafts, there's so many good players out there that I tend to lean more towards, consistency, I'd say. But yeah, with that being said, I'm sure Belly will prove me wrong, go out and have another MVP season and you'll win the league.
Yeah, he could. I mean, and he was a keeper for me, so I didn't have to draft him. I had him for a much cheaper cost. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I like Bauer for all the reasons you said. I think starting pitching is a lot harder to come by, is what we found in fantasy leagues. And so if you can have two guys that are equally valued in your mind and one's a pitcher, then you would take him. I also think Bellinger is hurt. He plays first base and outfield, which are two positions that are loaded. I've got about 100 guys that play first base and outfield on my roster, which is a problem for me. But yeah, I mean, I generally agree. I agree with the premise of Bauer is going to get a lot of strikeouts. He's going to get a lot of innings. He's going to get a lot of wins. And, yes, his ERA might not be perfect, but I think he's going to add up in so many of these other categories. I like him. And I also agree with your premise entirely, which is, I think, nobody's going to be surprised if Bellinger finishes the season as a top 5 fantasy player and makes everybody look smart that picked him at 19. I just think the variance in possible range of outcomes is so large for him that I'm with you. In the first and second round, I want a guy I could just pencil into my roster and not worry about for the next 6 to 9 months. So not to make that segment go long, I understand it. And again, I offered you Bellinger for Bauer, so clearly that shows where I stand. You rejected it, which is just interesting because it did seem like a lot of people prefer Bellinger to Bauer.
I will say everyone I talked to about that trade, because I went asking around, of course. I'm not some huge fantasy expert. I don't pretend to know everything. So I do know some people who are super into fantasy, so I went and asked them, and they all told me to do it, and I still didn't do it. But for me, something you kind of mentioned, pitching is just so
Yeah.
scarce that I don't want to give up my best guy right now. That's just what it came down to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of pitching, the next sort of two Dodgers on this list are Buehler at 19 and Kershaw at 29. For me, I like Buehler. I like Kershaw. It's too high for me in both of those spots. We're talking about a second round pick on Buehler and a third on Kershaw. I just think the Dodgers are going to be able to rest these guys. Neither of those guys necessarily I feel great about. Like Bauer, we just said, hey, he's going to pitch a ton of innings, get a ton of wins, get a ton of strikeouts. Buehler and Kershaw, I don't think anyone's penciling them into 32 starts this season. I just think there's too much variance. You could probably do a little bit better. Again, I like Buehler in postseason play. I like Kershaw in postseason play. But as far as in a fantasy setting, the full season, a little too rich for my blood in both of those. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree there. Yeah, when you're drafting a pitcher that high, there's other aces in the similar range that are going to go out there and, like you said, start 32 games, throw 200 innings. And I just don't think we're going to see that from Bauer. Or no, we are going to see that from Bauer, but not from Buehler and Kershaw. We've talked about this whole show basically about how much depth the Dodgers have in the starting pitching department. We're going to see all sorts of guys get starts. We're going to see them limit these guys' innings to keep them fresh for the postseason. So as far as fantasy purposes go, yeah, that's too high for me for those guys.
Next on the list is, I think, the guy that both of us, we don't need to spend a ton of time talking about. Corey Seager, average draft position is number 40 overall. I had the 11th pick in our draft. Again, there were a bunch of keepers, so imagine the top, 14 of the top 20 guys were already off the board. I had the 11th pick, and then I had the 14th pick. I knew that if I didn't take Seager either at 11 or 14, that he was going to be gone at your pick. I ended up not taking him. I took Bryce Harper and then Max Scherzer. But Seager at 40 is absolutely insanity to me. This guy is a second-round pick all day, every day. The number makes no sense to me. He's on your fantasy team. I have no doubts in my mind that you're buying Corey Seager at 40.
Yeah, 40 is ridiculous to me. I took Bauer in the first round. I honestly thought about taking Seager there just because I knew you had two picks right after me. And I was like, oh, Jeff might take him.
Thought about it.
But I decided to chance it and went with the pitching. And luckily you didn't. And he was just sitting right there for me with the 16th pick in the second round. I was ecstatic to get him there. I said Corey Seager's my MVP. So, yeah, I don't need to say anything else at this point.
I mean, that's probably on this list. That's probably the number I feel the strongest about. Like, if you have not drafted a fantasy team yet, you should absolutely be targeting Corey Seager is what I would be telling you. Next on the list is Will Smith at number 109. So we drop a little bit here. He's going somewhere in the 10th or 11th round, depending on what type of draft you are. I love Will Smith. You love Will Smith. I'm selling on this one. I could have kept Will Smith as a keeper at good value. I could have drafted him multiple times. I passed. I'm terrified that Dave Roberts is telling the truth when he says 90 games. And if Will Smith only plays 90 games, that's a brutal thing to happen to a 10th or 11th round pick. So I'm selling on Smith at 109.
Yeah. I'm going to say I'm not buying and I'm not selling. Like, I feel like that's pretty accurate for where he should be. And it's for all the reasons you just laid out. Like, ideally, you want to get volume. Like, you want to have a guy who's going to be in the lineup every day or almost every day. And if Will Smith is playing 90 games, that's just not going to be him.
Yeah.
But with that being said, 90 games of Will Smith is a lot better than what full seasons of a lot of other catchers are going to give. So if he goes out in 90 games and hits 20 home runs and drives in, 65 runs or whatever, that's what you're getting full season from a lot of other catchers. So I think, unfortunately, he would be a lot higher if he was going to be playing more, but the 90 games kind of limits him.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And again, I love Will Smith. I think the catcher position is a wasteland, by the way. If you want one bit of fantasy advice from me, it's go get yourself a catcher early. I think I grabbed Grandal. I don't know what you did at the catching position, but
I got Wilson Contreras, and I'm not too happy about it.
I mean, if you don't get Real Muto or Grandal or Smith, I don't love Salvador Perez. He's kind of up there, but beyond those three or four guys, it is slim pickings. So next on the list, we have Urias. We won't talk about all these. Urias, 127th. Price, 166. We obviously know that's way too high as a reliever. AJ Pollock, 178th, if you're believing the power. Dustin May at 180. Again, a buying position based on the news that came out today. Tony Gonsolin, 214th. Selling that now, knowing that he's a relief pitcher for sure. Justin Turner, 190th. The last two guys that we've kind of touched on a little bit that I feel strongly about in the buy category are Chris Taylor and Gavin Lux, both floating down around 226. Average draft position, the exact same. I'm not perfect at math. I believe we're talking about the 18th, 19th round if you're in a 12-team league. I'm buying the crap out of both of those guys. I think Lux is going to play just about every day, and I think Chris Taylor is going to play a ton, 5 to 6 times a week as well. I think they're just going to move him around. He'll play second base. He'll play shortstop. He'll play third base. He'll play left field. I think he's going to play a ton. He has hit every single time he plays. I am buying the crap out of Chris Taylor. I did buy the crap out of Chris Taylor. I'm trying to buy the crap out of Gavin Lux currently with trade that's going on, but I love Chris Taylor and Gavin Lux. If you're fantasy drafting and you haven't picked your team already, target those two guys at the end of the draft.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on Chris Taylor. I'm in another league with some of my buddies. We had our draft just last night, and I picked Chris Taylor in that one. Not only, he's going to play almost every day, so I don't think that's any of, like, his playing time is not going to be of concern. And also, he gives you versatility, which is huge in fantasy because you can move him around. You could put him at shortstop, second base, outfield. So that's going to be big because sometimes, guys get hurt and you need someone to sub in. And if a shortstop gets hurt, there's not too many great backup shortstops out there usually. So if you have Chris Taylor, you could just put him in right there. Yeah. So yeah, I'm buying Chris Taylor. And one other thing I will say, I want to give myself a little bit of a pat on the back. During our draft, in the middle to late rounds, I had a decision to make. And it was deciding between, do I go with David Price or Dustin May? And they hadn't announced who was the starter yet, but I was reading the tea leaves a little, and I decided to go with Dustin May because I thought ultimately he was going to win that 5th starter job. So I'm happy I did that and not David Price, who doesn't have a whole lot of fantasy value as a reliever. So yeah, I'm buying Dustin May as well.
Well, and so I think I ended up with Bellinger and Taylor, I believe, is my only 2 Dodgers on the roster. I'd have to think. Again, I'm trying to get Lux. I don't think I have any pitchers. And you ended up with Seeger, Bauer, May.
Seeger, Turner, Bauer, Julio, and May.
There you go. I'm telling all my buddies that don't know Daniel in this draft, I'm like, yeah, he took Bauer first, Seeger second. They're like, oh, freaking Dodger homer over here, just all Dodgers. But hey, you can't complain about any of those picks. So one question we've been getting in the chat here is someone's making a bold prediction, which is the Padres. Whether we're believers in the Padres, one guy made the bold prediction that San Diego is going to be the 2nd wild card in the National League. One person made the bold prediction that San Francisco is somehow going to be competing with the Padres for 2nd place in the division.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah. So there's some thoughts in there. Padres way better than the Giants. From your perspective, Padres clearly the 2nd best team in the division, I assume. Do you think the 2nd best team in the National League West is the number 1 wild card? Do you feel pretty confident about that? Or is there a possibility that those teams beat up on each other enough that maybe they struggle into the 2nd wild card spot?
No, I think the Padres are going to have their first wild card spot. And yes, maybe, them and the Dodgers are going to beat up on each other. But there's 3 other teams in the National League West that are all going to be pretty bad. And I think the Dodgers and Padres both are going to beat up on those other 3 teams. And when you look at the National League East, like, yes, there's good teams in there, but that's the problem is there's, 4 and even 5 teams that, are going to compete this year. So they're not going to be able to, just beat up on the bottom half of the division the way the Dodgers and Padres are. So I have the Padres as the first wild card team. I'm going with the Mets for the 2nd wild card team. But yeah, I think the Padres are going to have the best record for a non-division winner, and maybe even the 2nd best record in the National League overall.
Yeah, very possible, very possible. Well, I know we're coming up on the hour mark. This is our kickoff show, so we'll go a little bit longer. We got one more segment to go, which are some prop numbers that we'll do this quickly, and you can play along. Yeah. I'm going to throw out a number. These are courtesy of betonline.ag. No idea what country AG stands for. Algeria, maybe, not entirely positive, but we're not condoning necessarily wagering on sports, responsibly. I don't know. I don't have the 30-second spiel with every state in the union here, but I'll just throw out some numbers and you tell me over or under. I'll give you some stats as well. So Clayton Kershaw, 183 and a half strikeouts is the number. He had 189 in 2019. His strikeouts per 9 actually ticked up from that. So 189 in 2019. The number this year is 183.5. Over or under for you?
I'll go slightly under there. I'm expecting him to pitch about 150 innings. If you look at his career numbers, he strikes out a little more than a guy in innings. So if he's pitching 150 innings, he's probably going to strike out 160 or 170. So I'll take a little under there.
Okay. And Paul Vaughn tells me Angola is what AG stands for. So I'm going to take your word for that. Not a geography guy here. Did pass it in 9th grade, though, so shout out to me. Cody Bellinger next on our list. 284 is the batting average. 39 and a half is the home run number. He had 47 home runs in 2019, has never had more than 39 in any other year of his career. 284 and 39.5. What do you think about those numbers? I know both of us expressed some skepticism about Bellinger. The 284 number in particular kind of scares me. I probably lean under. I agree with you on the Kershaw under. I probably go under on Bellinger on both these numbers as well.
Yeah, I agree there. I'm going to go slightly under for both. I think he's going to bat about 265 with about 35 homers. So, yeah, slightly under for both.
Okay. Does anybody want to take bets on Daniel going over on every Corey Seeger number that I'm about to throw at him? Because I feel like the odds on that would be about minus 600 on Daniel getting over on this. But Corey Seager, the batting average is 290. The home run number is 295. Corey Seager, well, let me ask you this.
Wait.
Corey, 290 is the batting average. 29.5 is the home run number.
Oh, 29
Do you know
and a half.
I'm going to quiz you, Mr. Corey Seager fan club member. Do you know what his career high in home runs is?
I know it's in the high 20s, probably 28, I'd say, maybe.
Close. 26 back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
But in 70 games last year, including the postseason, he had 23. So 290 is the batting average. 29.5 is the over home run total. Is that a safe over for both of those for Daniel? Is that the lock of the week?
Those numbers are honestly laughable for me. Like, I thought you were going to give me something that I at least have to think about. But 290, come on. The guy's a 300 hitter easily. And 29 and a half home runs. Like you said, he almost got there in 70 games last year. So, yeah, that's easy overs. You could take that to the bank. I might go bet that right after we finish this show, to be honest.
He's going to create a bet online account just to get down on that number. Batting average, I was curious about. He hit 307 last year, 270 the year before, 267, 295, 308, 337. That's working backwards from 220. The average number scares me. The home run number I love. That's simply a question if he stays healthy. If Corey Seager plays 130 to 145 games, 29 and a half, I feel really good. He smashed all postseason. He has continued through the spring. So that is merely a bet on Corey Seager staying healthy. Again, the 290 is probably, that feels about right to me. I wouldn't say way under. Yes, he was a 300 hitter last year. The 3 seasons prior, he was not a 300 hitter.
He wasn't healthy those years.
That's true. So there you go. Okay, a couple more here. Kenley Janssen. This one's probably, to me, the lock of the entire thing. The over-under is 30.5 saves. I cannot get under this number quickly enough. Yes, you all know I love Kenley Janssen. I believe in Kenley Janssen. But, I mean, anything goes wrong. I think the leash is as short as it has ever been. To get to 30 and a half saves, I mean, yes, the Dodgers will probably end up the season with 55-ish saves. That's typically where, teams as good as the Dodgers will get to. Does Kenley Janssen get 60 to 70% of those? That one scares me a little bit. So I'm under on the 30 and a half saves.
Yeah, in my opinion, this is more of a bet on Kenley Janssen than on saves, really, because if he keeps his job the whole year, then that number seems really low because the Dodgers are going to win a ton of games. So if he keeps his job, he'll fly over that. But like you said, if he, the leash is as short as ever. So if he falters early, he could have single-digit saves. Like in theory, I don't expect that to be the case. But yeah, I mean, we don't know. We don't know if he's the guy. We don't know if it's going to be a committee led by him. We don't know if it's just an overall committee and he's not even the leader.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say I'm staying away from that one. I'm not touching that. If you put a gun to my head and made me choose, I'd say under.
I won't put a gun to your head. I promise you that, Daniel. Okay, next on the list, we got Max Muncie home run number. We'll play this way. Do you want to guess what the home run line is on Max Muncie? He had 12 in 58 games last year, so roughly 35 home run pace. He had 35 in 2018. He had 35 in 2019. Do you want to guess what the line is?
I feel like 35.
It's not 35. It's not 35. It's 30. 30 is the Muncie home run line. No half number there. So you got to get up to 31. Do you like the over or the under there for Muncie?
Look, the guy's proven that if he's in the big leagues, he's hitting 35 home runs. So if you're telling me the number's 30, then I got to go over because he's going to get to 35 like he does every other year.
Yeah, there's no concern about at-bats. I mean, I suppose maybe Edwin Rios takes a handful of at-bats away from him at first base with no designated hitter. But yeah, that's a stay away from me. I mean, Muncie, I've got some concerns that I try to keep to myself a little bit. I think the batting average on balls in play helps me out a little bit, but yeah, a little bit nervous there with Muncie. Mookie Betts, career high home runs is 32 in 2018. Last year, he was on pace for 45 to 50. His home run number is 34. 34 for Mookie Betts. You like the over or the under there?
I'm gonna go slightly under there. I like the 32, 31, 32. I know he hit a lot last year, which kind of was
Yeah.
unexpected. A lot of people thought he was gonna kind of go the opposite direction because he's getting away from the short porch in Fenway. They didn't know if his power would play at Dodger Stadium. We saw it plays just fine. But with that being said, I don't think Mookie's really a home run hitter. Like he can hit home runs, but I don't look at him as a home run hitter. And for me, predicting a guy's going to hit 35 home runs when they're not a home run hitter just seems like a lot to me. So I'll go slightly under there.
And Paul Vaughn, shout out to you and YouTube. He makes a great point. Let's not forget that the ball allegedly has been deadened this year. So when we're talking about all these numbers, 2018, 2019, 2020, we don't know what the impact has been. So we don't know if we're talking about, a 10% drop, a 5% drop, but that's that might be 1 or 2 home runs with a lot of these numbers. So maybe the smart thing here is to go under. I mean, we've liked the over on a lot of these home run totals, but maybe the smart thing is to bet on the deadened ball and go under. A couple more here. Trevor Bauer, 15 wins on the season. Over or under for you, Trevor Bauer, 15 wins?
I'm gonna go over there just because of the volume. If he's making 30, 32 starts, he's on a team that even some nights when he gets rocked, he still could win, with this lineup. So I'm going to go over there.
I agree with you. I just think he's going to make 32, 34 starts. And if you make 34 starts for the Dodgers and you go 5 innings in every single one of them, you're telling me, is he going to win 15 of them? Yeah, I think he is going to win 15 of them.
Yeah.
Walker Buehler, 14 wins. This is the last personal player prop I got. 14 wins for Walker Buehler. Over or under there?
I'm going to go slightly under there. I haven't loved what I've seen out of Buehler this spring, and I know it's just spring, and he could, he's a big game pitcher, so when the lights are brightest, he shines the most, I'd say. So I love Buehler, but I don't think he's a regular season pitcher, really. Like, I don't think he's going to go out and throw 200 innings this year as much as I'd love to see it happen. So I'm going to go slightly under there.
30 starts in 2019, he won 14 games. So, I mean, if he gets to 30 starts this year, he's still got to win half of them. I don't know if either of us would bet on the over on 28.5, 29.5 starts for Buehler. So that one scares me a little bit. Probably a stay away. I think the Dodgers are going to win a lot of games. Again, I think he's a guy. Kershaw, Buehler, and Bauer are going to have no problem getting into the 5th, 6th innings in their starts. Whereas I think a guy like Urias is probably going to have a bunch of 4-inning starts, that kind of thing. Last but not least, the big one, 103.5 is the win total for the Dodgers. They won 106 in 2019. They were on pace for 116 last year. Do you have the Dodgers over or under 103.5 wins this season?
I'm going over there. I got this team at 107 wins, which is pretty crazy to think about, but that may even be lower than a lot of other people. But yeah, I got them over 103, 107. That gives them the franchise record. You don't need to go for the major league record. Like that's not worth it. The team who has that, the Mariners, got bounced early in the playoffs. So you don't want to waste all your resources going for regular season win totals. But I'll take the franchise, record.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one because you kind of pointed out this earlier. On one hand, they've got to play the second best team in baseball, the Padres, 20 however many times you have to play every team in your division, a ton, which is going to hurt. So even if you are winning 55% of those, that's a lot of losses that kind of can start to pile up. The flip side is you get to play a ton of games against the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, and the Giants, all of who I think are terrible. I think the Giants maybe float around 500. I just think Farhan knows what he's doing and can kind of move the numbers around there. But the Diamondbacks are going to be really bad. The Rockies might be one of the worst teams in all of baseball. So there's going to be lots of easy wins for the Dodgers there. Elsewhere in the division, the National League as a whole is not great. So even interleague, I guess interleague within their league, interleague. I don't know what the phrase there is. There's going to be some wins to be had there. The Dodgers are the best team. I like the over on 103.5. If they won 106 in 2019. I think the Padres are going to push them all the way to the end, which I think matters as well. If this is a tight division race, the Dodgers aren't going to let up. And the flip side is, what does letting up look like? Well, Tony Gonsolin's going to start today, instead of Clayton Kershaw. It's like the Dodgers letting up, bringing up these guys like Michael Busch and whoever, Cody Hosey, and the next wave, DJ Peters. Those guys are going to be doing just as well. So absolutely. It seems like a lot of people agree with us on the over. No surprise there. Eddie Garcia wants to know if we've got division leader picks. You kind of hinted a little bit. Do you have picks that you've thought through on division leaders?
Yeah, I've thought about it, and I'd be
cool
going through it real quick. I got obviously the Dodgers in the NL West. The NL East, I got the Braves. I like the Mets, but I still think that's the Braves division. In the NL Central, that division sucks. So I'm just gonna go with the Brewers there. I kind of like some of the moves they made. I like their pitching staff. And it's not gonna you may be 500 in winning that division.
Yeah.
So I'm going with the Brewers. In the NL East, I'm gonna go with the Yankees. I think the Rays took a bit of a step back this offseason. Or AL East, sorry. So I'm going with the Yankees there. In the AL Central, I'm going with the Twins. I like what the White Sox are doing, but I still think the Twins are the better regular season team over 162 games. And then in the AL West, I'm going with that team in Houston. As much as it hates me, to say that division is just not very good. Oakland, they lost some key guys. The Angels, I just don't. Their pitching's not good enough for me, so I'm going with Houston there.
Yeah, I can't wade into the American League a ton. I mean, I agree for the most part with your NL picks. I think the Braves and the NL East, I like the Mets to come out of that division as a wild card as well. Although, I mean, that's going to be a good division. The Nationals are a quality team. The Marlins, I mean, I'm not a big Don Mattingly fan, but they're starting to put together some young talent. And even Philadelphia, they had like the worst bullpen of all time last year. So if that bullpen is even league average, it's kind of my Raiders defense belief. Like if we could just get to league average on one side of the ball, we'll be okay. And then you've got the NL Central that's a complete dumpster fire. I don't know. For some reason, I always believe in the Cubs. I know the names are still there, Baez and Rizzo and Bryant. And somebody has to win the division. Jock Peterson, my guy,
if
fantasy team.
We're getting MVP Jock, you never know.
There you go. So I'll stick with the Cubs there. Obviously, I've got the Dodgers in the NL West as well. I see a lot of people. Andy McCullough, I think, was the one who said he's got Dodgers over Yankees in the World Series. The Blue Jays were looking good. They've had some injury problems, but, I mean, the Yankees seem to be everybody's pick out there. So I haven't done enough research on the other AL teams there. So Daniel's got you covered there. As well. So, hey, well, we've got about 15 minutes long. We appreciate you guys joining us. Let me let you in on a little bit of insight into what the schedule is going to look like moving forward. Obviously, once games start, we're in spring training. That's why we're going in the middle of a game. It's spring training. It's fun, but I mean, whatever. It was either.
By the way, Corey Knebel just struck out Mike Trout, which is definitely a good thing to see. So
there you go. Corey Knebel. I mean, another guy that used to be great that nobody's talking about on the Dodgers. Yeah. A lot of people, hey, why are you recording this going live right in the middle of the game? It was either 8:00 or we wait till the end at like 10:30. And so we decided, hey, one last time, we're going to be doing lots of late nights once the regular season starts. So here's the plan. Every Sunday night, Daniel and I are going to record a show, so it will not be live. We're going to record on Sunday night. It'll get posted probably that night, maybe early Monday morning for you. That'll be kind of a recap for the week previously. It's not going to be specific to one game, but it's just going to be catching up on news from the week prior. The second piece of that is we are going to be going live once a week. Typically on Thursdays, sometimes on Fridays. If there's no game on a Thursday, we'll shift to Friday. We know Fridays, weekends can be tougher for some folks. Then again, on the flip side, we know that these games are going to be 10:30 p.m. post-game shows in a lot of places. So the plan is for Thursdays, sometimes Fridays. That will all start this week. So starting on Thursday, Daniel and I are going to be going live on opening day. We'll be going live right after the games end. So that'll be about 4 p.m. West Coast time. And then Sunday we'll record a show, and then we'll be back the following Thursday for the home opener, another day game. We're still deciding on that night whether we want to do the 4:00 immediately following, or if we should wait till 7 or 8 p.m. till folks get home. So TBD on that kind of thing, but we will see what happens. So that's the plan. Sunday nights recorded. Thursday or Friday nights we'll go live post-game. Daniel will be along with me just about all the time. He's got some Lakers stuff. Justin Lorber might hop in, Matt Moreno as well. So Daniel and I will be here for most of the time. So we appreciate you guys supporting us. This is entering our second season of covering this. Our first year we won a World Series, so I just want to say maybe a little bit of credit to Daniel and I for starting the show, home of the 2020 World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. But we appreciate all you guys for joining us. We appreciate you watching. Please like, please subscribe, please ring the notification bell. We do have videos that come out just about every day during the week, updating and reacting to some of the breaking news as it comes. So we appreciate you all. Dodger Blue 1958 everywhere on social media, at D Starkand, at Jeff Spiegel on Twitter if you want to follow us. We appreciate you. Enjoy your night. We'll see you Thursday after the Dodgers are 1-0 after opening day. But before we do any of that, let's listen to the words of Vin Scully.
The best team holding a trophy high in the air. The Los Angeles Dodgers, champions of the baseball world.